Hello and welcome to the commentated version of the TF2 Training Level Speedruns. If you want to see the speedruns without commentary, follow the link in the description. The first speedrun is pretty straightforward, so it's a good time to explain some concepts. All the training levels are played on the map TR Target, with one exception. Also, you can't jump out this window. The way Target works is that it contains several logic relays, each one corresponding to a different part of the training. For instance, there's a separate relay for each text bubble that shows up on screen. These relays are triggered by logic outputs when we perform certain actions, like pressing space to close the previous text box, or switching weapons, as you just saw me doing. The output triggers the relay, which activates the next part of the training. The reason you see me constantly jumping here is because I'm mashing the spacebar to skip through text, and it also happens to be my jump key. By the way, these targets have all been on a set pattern up until now, but starting here it becomes random. I happened to get lucky that most of the spawns were shotgun bots, so I didn't have to waste time switching weapons. And yes, the game does restrict which weapon you can use to shoot which targets. Now we're going to bots on a set spawn timer, so all that really matters is how fast I destroy the last one. For that reason, you'll see me wait until the targets have stopped moving to shoot them, so that I can land a guaranteed hit. The bots will always follow roughly the same path in addition to spawning at the same times. I also sometimes switch to the shotgun because I want to have all my rockets loaded in order to quickly dispatch the final two bots. So now that we know how the game's logic works, how do we break it? Well, oftentimes the relay for the next action is disabled until we have completed the current one, especially with text boxes. But sometimes the relays and outputs are active from the start of the level, because Valve doesn't think we should be able to activate them yet. So if we are able to perform certain actions that correspond to one of these logic outputs, then those outputs will fire earlier than intended, making them activate relays that come much later in the training, and leading to some major skips.
Mission begins in 60 seconds.
You may notice that the quality during this part of the video is an improvement on previous sections. That's because demo replays don't work well with training maps. The text boxes don't display the correct text, as well as other weird glitches. I imagine Valve never expected people to try recording their training segments, so I had to record all the footage in real time. I should also mention that I'm playing each separate course in an individual segment, and not one right after the other. The first thing I do here is push my bot friends closer to the door, so they can run out and capture the point quicker. The bots won't start capturing the point until I have already stood on it, so the general idea is to make it to the first point as fast as possible and start the cap, then run to point B while my team captures point A.
Mission begins in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3.
Interesting note, the gates don't actually open when the timer hits 0, but roughly a second after that. The reason I shoot that scout back into his tunnel is so that his scattergun shots don't slow me down. For the start of the second segment, I wait a little bit, then look at the medic to get him to taunt. The idea is to keep him in place for a little bit so that he doesn't block the heavy. Although in this case he still managed to be a little bit of a nuisance.
Go, go, go! Charge! Move up! Move up, move up, move up! Move!
Mission begins in 30
Another
seconds.
reason for making the medic taunt is so that he doesn't push the soldier flat up against the wall, because then there's no way for me to squeeze between in order to push him out. I'm also careful to walk all the way around the soldier, both now and when I got the heavy, because I can also push him against the wall accidentally.
Mission begins
Roger
in
that.
10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here I use the voice command to get an Uber, just so that I can have a little more health for all the rocket jumps I'm going to do. You can actually do this portion a little faster if you rocket pogo along the second layer of that building, but I would still have to wait for my team to cap the first point anyway. If you're especially slow here, standing at the far back of the point and calling medic can sometimes get him to help you cap. Also, speaking of slow teammates, I had to reset a lot of runs because my bots would either die or not make it to the point fast enough to be worth it.
Booyah!
Mission begins in 60 seconds.
Deploy a teleporter here. Last one up, thanks.
This was one of the hardest portions of the run. I jump immediately here to shoot my first rocket over the soldier's head. Then I have to take out the sentry while simultaneously avoiding getting hit.
Rally round. Help me
Here I
get
think a
this
left
point.
wall jump would have been faster, but I would take more damage and it was a lot harder.
Hell, boy.
I got trolled here a couple times as well when a surprise heavy or pyro spawned.
We have commandeered my point.
The Demoman speedrun was without a doubt the hardest of the runs. There are two waves, one where you have to use nades and one where you have to use stickies. Because this is a speedrun, I want to only use one nade per enemy and one sticky detonation per enemy, but sometimes the game spawns two enemies at once and forces me to use two pipes. Also, that engagement notice. You'll see me later get really excited because it happened on the first run I got perfect RNG. The chance that I'm able to defeat all 5 of the grenade rounds using only 5 grenades is about 7%. Because I laid out stickies in advance, and because I can hit 5 of the 6 enemies with only 2 stickies, I was able to bring the chance of success on the sticky round up to 38%, or about 1 in 3. Actually, I got a perfect grenade round 10 times before the sticky round gave me ideal RNG. By now, I was so nervous I would mess up that I fired the sticky prematurely. But somehow I managed to recover and only lose a fraction of time, if any. Ideally, you want to shoot a sticky on the back wall there and detonate it when the enemy pops up. Now, for the spy training, you're supposed to be stuck unable to equip your revolver, sapper, or disguise kit, and then later learn all of those tricks in turn. However, even though we can't access our disguise kit, we can still disguise by pressing the Assume Last Disguise button. Moreover, we can equip our revolver by hitting the Switch to Last Inventory button. It used to be that you could also change to your revolver by taunting, but that seems to have been patched. Now, the game wants us to cloak past the sentry and then unlock the ability to disguise and sap, but the sentry is accessible from the beginning, so if we find some other way to destroy it, it still triggers the relay for a later section of the training.
With that blood on my suit, I'm going to gut you like a tarnished game.
Now, the engineer training goes by fast, so I'm going to pause the video here. What it wants you to do is build a sentry and dispenser and teleporter and upgrade all of them to level 3 and then destroy them all when you're done. But the output that checks for destruction of buildings is active from the beginning. You just can't access your build or destroy PDAs. However, Valve didn't stop you from using the console commands build and destroy. So all we have to do to beat the training course is build and destroy 4 buildings. The code I am typing in now makes it easy to do that as fast as possible.
Teleporter going up.
Victory.
And there you have it, all 4 training courses beat in record time.